And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Thank you for showing up. Anyone here for the first time? What brings you here?
My cousins invited me.
Yes. What did they tell you where you were going, or they just dragged you along?
No, they told me.
Yeah. So you came willingly. You weren't forced here.
Right.
I know these two. I just want to make sure. Glad you're here. Welcome. First time. What brings you here? Yeah, sure.
Oh, been here before.
Oh, okay. I thought your hand went up, no?
No. Mine did. I was walking by.
Oh, there you go. Well, welcome. What brings you here? Just walking by?
Here.
Her.
We had dinner in the area, and I was like, let's go. I want to show you the temple.
Yeah. What do you think so far? I'm not talking to you right now. You had your chance. You passed. Yeah. So, anybody else? First time. Want to share why? Those of you who keep coming back, all jokes aside, why do you keep showing up? Why do you keep coming back? What's the reason?
Guidance.
Guidance?
Peace.
Peace?
Enlightenment.
Enlightenment. Did you get there yet?
Not yet.
How long you been at this?
Quite a while.
How long is quite a while?
A few years, 3
A
years.
few years, only 3 whole years, and you're not enlightened yet? You know how many lifetimes the Buddha had to go through, and then it still took him 35 years? You know? 3 years. That's good. How has it changed you in 3 years? What do you think? The practice.
I better understanding my suffering, the attachment.
Yeah.
Life has gotten a little bit easier because of knowing that.
Yeah.
My attachment to impermanence, things that are impermanent, and letting go of that, walking the Eightfold Path.
Yeah. Beautiful. You're pretty close. I mean, I'm thinking another 6 months. You should be there. No, but I just want to highlight, everything you said was really beautiful, but one thing that stuck out to me that you said is that it was just a recognition of the suffering, that it exists. And life's a little bit easier because you recognize it. But you didn't say anything about it going away, and I think that's really important, is that we often, I think for many of you who are maybe new to this practice, right, often there's this idea that you do this meditation Buddhist stuff and like all your suffering is going to end or go away or cease to exist, and it's always going to be there, right? And we can look at it and observe it and understand it and how to maybe minimize it and begin to really see why it's showing up so often in our lives. But it's not just going to poof one day go away because you do this Buddhist thing. It's always going to be there. But we get better at managing it, handling it, dealing with it. And I think that's really, to me, that's a really beautiful part of this practice. All right, so with that, we'll start with the meditation practice. To those who are joining virtually, glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. Feel free, there's a chat box on your screen. Feel free to say hello. If you'd like, a couple things I'll tell you before we begin. For those who might be brand new or maybe sitting here for the first time, nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Meaning, don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are at a cushion, often helps sign to the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, same thing. Just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders. Hands can be on the knees or lap. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, it just means you need to move. And again, if you are brand new, you're not trying to empty your thoughts, you're not trying to go blank, you're not trying to think nothing. Your mind will continue to wander and race. I'll say things periodically to either wake you up or remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to present moment. Most important, do not expect anything from this practice. We're just going to sit and breathe. Starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. Eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet. Wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgment from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move, and most important, the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's nothing to do with anything I said. Nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external situation. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpata, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. Imagine going a day without being disturbed by someone. Imagine going an hour without being disturbed by someone. Most of you won't even make it out of the temple before you're disturbed by something. Right? This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. This practice is direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulty, challenges. This is life. This practice is learning to be with life as it arises. As opposed to what many of us have done so much of our lives, which is run from conflict and chaos and difficulties and challenges. This is learning to see it as it arises, understand it, see the impermanent nature of it, and go on with your day. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody you encounter every moment of your life, and that's it. We spend so much time trying to change, control, fix, manipulate everything and everyone around us. And this practice is working on our minds and our reaction to the world around us. And then life gets a little simpler. Doesn't mean your challenges are going to go away, as you said. Doesn't mean the problems are going to go away. They won't. They'll change. But you become better prepared, better equipped to deal with the conflict as it arises. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I always really prefer to respond to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And to those who are joining virtually, again, welcome. Glad you're here. Thank you for showing up. Ross, sorry you're still sick, but glad you're still home. So if you have any questions virtually, you can put them in the chat box. I'll do my best to respond. And we'll open up the rest of our brief time this evening for questions. Yes, sir.
I have a grip on mindfulness and no mind during the day. It's not a problem. I turn, whether it's chopping wood, hauling water, whatever, I turn into a meditation. But at night, when I go to shut down and go to sleep, my mind makes up for all that quiet time. I don't know how to shut it off.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. Yeah. I'm glad you didn't ask a question because I got no answer for you. Thank you for sharing. No, but I think, a couple things to just kind of process, to look at, to sit with is, very often, even with a traditional seated meditation practice and kind of the chop wood, carry water example, just going through your day and staying present and doing things. My teacher very early on, she always said, for me specifically, busy is the best nutrition. And so I stayed busy, trying to do as many good things as possible, and that allowed my mind to focus on doing good stuff, which then made me feel better and then made me ultimately happier, right? But then it came time to go to sleep. And then you're just stuck with this madness, right? And so I think for me early on, and I know you've been at this a long time, no reference to your age, of course, but you've been at this a while. And so I think a couple things is to maybe try a meditation practice at night. I don't typically, in the Buddhist teachings, he says sitting, standing, walking, lying down, right? For people who are new, unless you have physical problems, I don't necessarily encourage doing meditation laying down if you're new to this practice, because typically if you do meditation laying down, what are you going to end up doing? Falling asleep. And there's nothing wrong with sleep, but if you're working on trying to cultivate and train the mind to be present, you want to try to stay awake. However, for those who do have difficulty falling asleep, difficulty kind of quieting that mind at nighttime, it's a great opportunity to, ready for bed, lay down, close the eyes, deep breath in, deep breath out, deep breath in, deep breath out, right? We're tired. Our mind is tired. Our body is tired. And using the breath to focus on as you try to sleep can help. The challenge always is when we're quiet and doing nothing, what are we left with? This thing. And what drives us crazy all day long that we kind of stay occupied so we don't have to focus on is this thing. So try maybe a seated meditation practice, or a laying down meditation practice at night. Yeah. And good luck. It's tough. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I know that if there's something I'm trying to not think about, the more that I say, don't think about that, don't think about that, don't think about that, the more I'm gonna fixate on it.
Yeah.
It's like if you say, don't think about a pink elephant, you're gonna think about a pink elephant.
Thank you for all of us now thinking about pink elephants.
So I try and just it's called leaves on a stream, and you just think of your thoughts as like a leaf on a stream.
Yeah.
And you just acknowledge each thought as it comes up, and you just go, okay, I'm thinking about peas or whatever, and then you just are acknowledging it as it comes through, and just focus on, think about your literal thoughts on a stream. But if you are really trying to just say go away, it's gonna make it way worse.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so many techniques, the leaves floating down the stream, thoughts becoming clouds, thoughts being like a train or an airplane flying overhead. Early on, I had somebody share, which I really liked, I used to do, was to see the thoughts and then put them in an envelope. And the actual process of thought arises, recognize a thought, put it in an envelope, visualize, sealing the envelope, stamping the envelope, writing the address, sending it off. So a lot of kind of techniques we can use to potentially, really just kind of not fixate on the thoughts so much. But they do, the thoughts will keep coming, and I think the idea of just watching them and letting them pass can be helpful, not just nighttime, but throughout our day also. The thoughts arise throughout the day, and anytime you get angry, depressed, sad, whatever it might be, that doesn't just come out of nowhere. Those emotions that you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis are coming because of thoughts that are arising in your mind. And then we fixate on them, and then we create stories. The thing you're angry about that happened 30 years ago, it happened 30 years ago. Or 3 years ago, or this morning, or whatever it was. But when the mind chooses to continuously fixate on that, then the story gets worse. So, what else? Questions?
I have a question. I'm always looking at this Homer Simpson with the donut right here, and it's kind of funny because I always used to get a donut before I'd meditate. And I think about this Murakami quote. This is a quote. He says, "It's like donut holes. Whether you take a donut hole as a blank space or as an entity unto itself is a purely metaphysical question and does not affect the taste of the donut one bit." And it's I think I've always thought that this had something to do with Zen meditation, but I've never really quite put my finger on it. I mean, you want to look at it?
No, I got you.
Right, you heard it?
No, but I get it. Yeah, I think, simplify things. Not everything has to be so far out there.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Zen expressions is when hunger, eat, when tired, sleep. Don't overthink this stuff. Think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. Practice kindness. Don't be an asshole. Be nice. Simple things. Simplify this practice. Specifically with, the kind of reference that you're talking about in the Zen practice, there's a really kind of a little expression story where it says, before studying Zen, mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers. While studying Zen, mountains are no longer mountains and rivers are no longer rivers. After studying Zen, mountains are again mountains and rivers are again rivers. So, your kind of example of the donut, the hole in the donut itself, these are all just stories that we create to make sense of it. But ultimately, just eat the donut. Hole or no hole, eat the donut. Yeah. Unless you don't like donuts, don't eat the donut. But don't complicate things. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
I formed this habit of watching like catastrophes online, like every day. And it's this one specific catastrophe that happened, and I just watch videos on it daily. And it's like, before I go to bed and I'm just like surfing around, I just like look up a video and like I don't find joy from this.
Yeah.
But I'm like amazed at how crazy it was. And like I don't know if it's actually negative. Well, it's definitely a negative thing. But I don't know if this could be something deeper within me, or if it's just me being weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so the question was just around, for those virtually didn't hear, the question was around just a negative, kind of a pretty tragic negative occurrence that you're fixated on, obsessed with, and watching nightly especially. And so your question is around, you don't know if it's deeper or if you're just weird or whatever is going on there. You watch it on your phone?
On my laptop.
Okay. Well, then my example won't work, but do you have your phone on you?
I do.
Come up here. Come here. Don't hit the camera, because then everybody virtually will start complaining. Give me your phone. And go sit back down. Thank you very much. So we're just going to pretend that was your laptop. Right? How do you feel right now being this far away from your phone? It's like how old are you? You're pretty young.
29.
Yeah, so that's like cutting your arm off right there. Like taking a 29-year-old's phone potentially is really traumatic. I'm serious. You're okay. All right, good. I just want to make sure. Yeah. So let me start with I think the depth of your question, which is there something more going on? Of course. There's always something more going on. Always. In everything we do. This is Pratitya Samupata, dependent origination, as I always say at the end of every meditation, right? The Buddha's awakening was based on this understanding of Pratitya Samupata, dependent origination, which meaning everything is conditioned upon something else for its existence. So your simple act, it doesn't matter what the simple act is, right? Your simple act of watching something, your simple act of, eating a donut, your simple act of taking a walk across the street, all of those things that we do, there's something going on behind that create that habitual pattern and behavior in our minds and in our hearts that we then act on. This is our karma, thoughts, words, and actions. It's what we do. So your thoughts are leading to these actions. So your question around, is there something going on behind that? Of course there is. I can't figure that out for you, right? With a kind of really deep meditation practice and taking time, you'll begin to understand, not to answer right now, right? Even if I asked you, what do you think it is? It's not to figure out right now. It's to actually ask yourself, or explore, I should say, over time, what is the reason that this keeps coming up? And short term, if it's something that you want to stop, which it is, I'm guessing, or you wouldn't have asked this question, right? I mean, you'd like to, I don't need the details, but without going into the details of what the tragic thing is that you're watching, you'd like to stop watching it, yeah? So, practically, and that's why I asked, how do you watch it, right? I just made the stupid assumption that it was on your phone. Right? You don't have your laptop on you. I should have asked you that first, right? So, and is it something that as you're getting ready for bed, you pull it up and you start watching that?
Well, it won't be like, it will show up in my...
On your feed or whatever.
Yeah.
So, close it. Stop looking at it. Shut a time. Set the alarms. A lot of, for me, meditation, Buddhist practice started with discipline. And we look at the Paramitas, right, in Buddhist practice: generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. This is Samantapadra over here, right? The practice, Bodhisattva of great diligence. The 6 tusks represent the 6 Paramitas. In Buddhism, the Bodhisattva means enlightened being, but the Bodhisattva practice is to bring these 6 practices into your life to help you suffer less and in turn help others suffer less. But for you specifically, generosity, morality, patience, diligence. The diligence is discipline. Discipline with wisdom, which says if what you're using to see this image, you want to stop, then put the laptop in the other room or whatever. Make it not accessible at that moment. And of course, the addiction, the craving, I mean, any addiction, to say just move it doesn't always work. I get that, because the craving is there. But the first thing is try to remove the physical conditions that are creating that situation. And at the same time, begin to explore, like, what's really going on here? And again, that's not for me to figure out, do you go to therapy? Are you in therapy? Yeah, I mean, no, if you haven't heard me say this, many of you have, half the people who come to this place are in therapy. The other half are therapists, and half of the therapists are also in therapy. So when I say, are you in therapy, it's not, believe me, you ain't the only one in the room who's in therapy or gone through therapy. But the digging out what's going on, that's more therapy stuff, to figure out, like, what trauma, what is this triggering, why am I obsessing over this, what's my fascination with it, you're not weird. You can remove that, you're not weird. You're just human. Try to drop the labels of, am I weird? Is there something wrong with me? Why do I do this? These are just things you're doing. And you have created habitual patterns and behaviors in your mind based on past. So to understand that and unravel it, and we look at emptiness in Buddhism, coming back to the donut and the donut hole, the idea of emptiness just means that there's something there. Empty doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There's something there. But what's there is completely different from how you perceive it. And sometimes we need help, we need guidance, we need therapy, a therapist to help us explore what trauma, what's going on with all that. But short term, lock that laptop away. So make sure I don't forget to give you your phone back when we're done. What else? Questions? Yeah.
It's not really a question, it's more just I wanted to express something.
Yeah.
This is my second time being here at the temple, and I think that, I know, since I can remember, and having my experiences with suffering and pain, I kind of, for some reason, I've always saw it as bittersweet. It hurts, obviously, and having to go through such things. But then at the end of the day, when I think about it, and I look at the sky, and I think, like, damn, like, it's kind of beautiful thing. Because I've grown so much from it. And I've seen, like, my progress from how it's made me stronger. And, like, just being able to use that and then meditating here and even practicing it out there has helped me calm myself in situations that, contain suffering.
Yeah.
And I've seen my progress of just when I get into, if I get into a predicament with somebody and there's an argument, I'm able to, stop myself. And I'm not perfect at it, not really ever be perfect, but, I've noticed that I don't really say much anymore.
Yeah.
I'm more just quiet. And I'm just like, okay, I'll let this person speak and just handle it. And then that'll resonate, and that'll stay with me, and then I'll process it later through, meditation.
Yeah.
So I found this very helpful, and I feel like this is probably where I want to be practicing that now.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It's really beautiful, especially early on when you start to see that meditation, learning about these teachings, they really do transform your life. But it does take time. You got to practice the patience. But I loved what you said about perfect. Shinra Suzuki Roshi, both San Francisco Zen Center, and really one of the kind of main. So much credit to him and a handful of others, but really for bringing Buddhism to the Western world. And he would tell his students, you're all perfect exactly how you are, and you all could use a little improvement, right? And so the idea was, kind of even coming back to the weird comment, the idea was not to get so wrapped up, am I this, am I that, to be able to see, as you said, the beauty of who you are from all your experiences. And has it been painful? Absolutely. I mean, we come into this world, literally, the moment we are born, what are we doing? when we're born.
Right.
We're not just crying, we're screaming. We enter this world screaming. You know? That's no joke. And so that's a part of our lives. And as we get older, we scream differently. You know? I mean, imagine if we all just ran around screaming like little babies, you know? Some of us still do. But we're all screaming in different ways. And to be able to see that pain and see that screaming, you know, with both of what you've shared tonight, is really beautiful and profound. And to just observe, that's where we become an observer of the thoughts and the emotions, and not so attached to them. Yeah, thanks for sharing. What else? Other questions? Thoughts?
At the thing on Saturday, I had asked about the eyes and the
Yeah.
you said to ask on Tuesday.
Yeah. Not something I study. Ask on Saturday. There is, they call the 32 marks of existence of the Buddha. And, you know, it's said that, well, many things are said, you know, and these are stories. You know, it's said that, speaking of crying, right? So most of us come into the world screaming and crying. Well, the Buddha came in, Siddhartha, when he was born. And apparently when he was born, he took 7 steps immediately, pointed to the sky and said, "This is my last rebirth." So, wasn't screaming. 7 steps. Said, "This is my last rebirth." And there's what's known as 32 marks of existence. And they say that a Buddha would have 32 marks. And I used to know more of them. But for example, you know, they say he had Dharma wheels on his hands and his feet. He had webbed feet. He had very long ears so he could hear. You know, this was the third eye to be able to see more. So there's lots of things, kind of marks of existence. And for me, I've always seen those teachings, even with the iconography of Buddhism, as representations of, you know, like 1,000-armed Kuan Yin has 1,000 arms and 11 heads. You know, if we have 2 eyes and we have the ability to see, then we can see with just 2 eyes. If we had, you know, 11 heads and eyes in all directions, we could see more suffering in the world. So I always look at kind of the iconography of Buddhism as ways to just really bring out aspects of ourselves and how we can embody an additional level of wisdom and compassion to help ourselves and others suffer less. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
When you first touched that space where you realized you didn't need to be anybody else or go anywhere or do anything, you know, when you were first in it, what did you use to try to bring yourself back to that space more?
Yeah. So, I mean, first, just to clarify, like, I don't, well, I'll say this. I've never been there. The space you're talking about, which is like to reach a space where you feel like you don't have to be anything or anyone else, I can't say that I'm there. What I can say is that I definitely relate to that question on many levels with aspects of practice to where not so much that I feel that I've achieved or attained anything, because even in the Heart Sutra it says with nothing to attain, Bodhisattva is relying on Prajna Paramita, which is perfect wisdom, begin to realize Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, supreme ultimate enlightenment. So for me, I definitely don't see this as any sort of attainment or anything to have achieved, but what I will say is there are definite moments throughout practice and in my own personal journey where you recognize certain things just, and when I say don't matter, I don't mean aren't important. Certain things are just happening. And there's no need for them to destroy me personally. And if that space is ever kind of shattered or destroyed, to where I feel that something that is happening is actually influencing me mentally or emotionally, then I'll pause and recognize that whatever is happening is not me. And look at it and begin to understand, why is what's happening I've had over my desk since 2005. It was a dear friend of mine in the monastery, a Buddhist monk who was, kind of an elder to me, a friend, but I saw him as a teacher. And his gift, after I was out there, I don't know, however many months in, and it's a skeleton sitting in meditation, and it says, "Who am I?" It's just a skeleton. So that image comes to mind in moments of this, of recognizing that we're just skin and bones with a trillion experiences that have happened. And none of those experiences are me. And they're not mine. They didn't happen to me. They're not happening to me. I'm just going through them. And it's not even I that's going through them. They're just happening. And I think a very core fundamental Buddhist teaching that I will always come back to is impermanence, which just says whatever in this moment may be bothering me, it will change, it will fade, it will pass, it will come back. But to not try to jump on that train and ride with it, because it'll destroy me. And I think also for someone who came into practice, it's almost like when I asked you, how'd you get started? For me, pain and suffering, anger and depression, like real simple. How did I get started in Buddhism? Years of anger and depression. That'll do it to you. And so I think any time that I might recognize that I might be headed towards these, it's like there's just these breaks that hit and say, no, that's just a world of pain and suffering. And in like that, you just don't even go there. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's hard to kind of express how my mind works with that stuff. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, please. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it's hard for me to express how my mind works with that. But I just see it. I'll give you one more example. Years ago, I was walking with a friend. It doesn't matter where it was, but we were walking in the street, nighttime, and there was way ahead, like from here to the back of the wall, fire trucks, ambulance, police cars, big commotion. This is like 20 years ago. And all of a sudden, I see all this chaos going on. We're walking together. This was actually, I can tell you exactly when it was. This was 2007, 18 years ago. And we just opened Dharma Bums. And so I saw that, and I started walking fast to see what was going on. And in like a split second, I turned to my buddy. Where'd he go? I went that way, and at the same speed, he went that way. So it was like this recognition of stop running towards the pain and suffering. At the same time, maybe stop running away from it.
Yeah.
Now when I think about that, really.
Yeah.
But maybe just settle in the experience of each moment. It'll change. Yeah.
Thank you.
Were you going to say something else? I didn't want to.
No, I felt like I understood what you meant about how it's hard to explain it. And the whole idea is to try not to do something and then also not try to not do something.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Explaining how I don't do things is really difficult. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. What else?
You have a question for me?
Yeah.
So when you have no mind, and you're aware of consciousness, what is aware of that consciousness?
Yeah, I mean, that's, the ultimate teaching is that there is no self and who is suffering. And, the Yogacara school of Buddhism, the mind-only school, Dogen's teaching specifically, Zen Master Dogen from 1200 to 1253, the book titled, Shobogenzo is his main teaching, but the book titled Beyond Thinking. And my favorite expression, kind of teaching from that book, is that when body and mind fall away, you're just left with sensation of breath. And so, in that, again, I have no idea what this is like, but I could only imagine that in that space where you were just abiding, not you, but there is just the abiding in sensation of breath. There is no body, there is no mind, there is no consciousness to become aware of. Doesn't mean it's not there, but it's not yours. I mean, you already know I can't answer that question, so I'm just saying shit to humor you, you know. But there's no answer to that, you know. Yeah. And I think, you know, for especially those who are maybe new to practice, I think the most important thing around some of these questions and some of these responses is to recognize, you know, even going back to 3 years in and day 2 and, you know, or, you know, second time here, whatever it is, to recognize that as you're going through your day and you have everyday life problems, family's driving you crazy, work's driving you crazy, traffic is driving you crazy, you know, 8:05, 5 o'clock, whatever it is, customer service, all these things that bother you and annoy you, all of them are impermanent. They're all going to change. They're all going to go away. And everything and everyone that you're so angry and upset and carrying so much, you know, grudges around, all of that and all of them will be gone at some point in time. And so the people you're angry at right now, maybe you know them, maybe you love them, maybe they're important to you in your lives, but you just can't move through that. They're going to be gone at some point in time. Including, always most importantly, when you're beginning this practice, is yourself. So many people end up on this path in a place like this, you know, any temple, any spiritual practice, any yoga practice, whatever it is, right? Because they don't like themselves. The quick fix to that is the Buddha says there is no self, so you're good. You don't have a self to like or not like, so you're okay. But since we are still stuck as unenlightened human beings, I mean, you're close, but since we're still stuck as unenlightened human beings trying to, you know, come out of this sense of self, begin to have some loving kindness and compassion towards yourself. Begin to love that sense of self. Again, as Dogen said, you must get to know the self before you can get rid of the self. So begin to practice a little bit of love, a little bit of kindness, a little bit of gentleness toward yourself. Because, you know, that's what drives so many people to this. And the forgiveness towards yourself. Anyone in here done anything you wish you hadn't done? Right? I mean, and just because you go to Buddhist stuff for 2 years doesn't mean you're not going to still do stupid shit tomorrow. Tonight. I mean, it's just now 8 o'clock. Do you know how many dumb things so many of you are still going to do tonight? Right? But when you do them, don't judge yourself for them. Don't hate yourself for them. Don't think you're being a bad Buddhist or you're some unenlightened, you know, fool. We're just human. That's who we are. It's what we do. Experience life. Try not to judge yourself so much. Things will get better, things will get worse, but things will always change. And one day, we will be gone. So why waste any moments being miserable? Life goes quick, man. Any final questions or anything before we close? Anyone's been sitting with and afraid to ask? Yeah.
So when someone makes you upset, like, and you have to continue seeing this person and they do certain behaviors, I guess I'm having a hard time. Like, do I just suppress and ignore the behaviors? Yeah?
No, go ahead, sorry. No, don't do that. Yeah, meaning I'm hearing you. Yeah.
Do you, because I'm listening to you and I'm like, I can't wrap my head around just being like, they're going to be gone one day and just oversee it, because I think I have done that. Mm-hmm. And it's worked at the moment, but then it's happened again to where they do something and I become enraged and I'm like, why am I here again?
Right. Yeah, no, great question. And I'm glad at the very end when I said anyone else been sitting with something for an hour that you spoke up, because it's important. Otherwise, that would have driven me crazy all night long. And I think it's important, and I'll close with this kind of thought and idea, and I talk about this a lot, is it's important to understand that, and each situation is different, right? Obviously, strangers piss us off, make us angry, traffic, whatever it is. People come and go, you're never going to see them again, right? And so we can just remove ourselves from those situations. Other situations in life, loved ones, family, things like that, it's not so easy to just remove ourselves from them, right? I also want to say, I'll get to the suppression thing in a minute, but I also want to say that by no means does Buddhist practice mean that if you're in unhealthy, toxic, dangerous relationships, friendships, even some family situations, there's nothing in Buddhism that says you should stay there and be physically, mentally, emotionally abused. You should remove yourself, and I'm not even speaking to you specifically, just to everybody. Remove yourself from those situations. It's not about, I'm Buddhist, so you can continue to abuse me. No. There's no wisdom and no compassion in that whatsoever. So we always want to keep ourselves safe, first and foremost. To your question and kind of comment specifically, there's a balance there. In Buddhism, we call it the middle path. But I suggest finding a balance because depending upon who it is, right? Maybe it's a family member. And we all know sometimes, we're stuck with family members. And sometimes we can't just, ignore them the rest of our lives. And if you're in a situation where they're doing things that are harmful to you or those around you, this practice also doesn't mean that you just ignore it. It doesn't mean you pull out the Buddhist card and say, well, that's okay, I'm Buddhist, you can continue to treat me like shit. No. Don't do that. Do not suppress it. Do not keep it in. But here's my suggestion, is one of my favorite things that I've told myself over the years is let me ask, what's your name?
Michelle.
Michelle, have you ever treated somebody poorly?
Yes.
Have you ever been really mean and nasty to somebody?
Yes.
And when you are that way towards them, why are you doing that towards them? What does that say about how you're feeling in that moment?
I'm angry with myself.
You're angry, you're suffering, you're in pain, and therefore you're treating people that way. So first, and this is where we begin to practice compassion towards others, is when people are doing these things towards you or towards others, what does that say about them? They're what? They're suffering. It doesn't make what they're doing okay or right. It doesn't excuse it. I want to make that very clear. But what it says is they are suffering. So in that moment, one of the things I've told myself over the years is that's their mess, not mine. Their suffering, not mine. I don't have to allow their suffering to cause me suffering. I also don't have to sit there and take it or deal with it. I can, depending upon the situation, remove myself or keep a boundary or keep safety or whatever the situation is. And last thing I'll kind of add to, does that make sense so far? Last thing I'll kind of add to this is especially for those new to Buddhism, is that I think the Buddha was very rebellious. I think he was very much a activist. I mean, he spent 45 years roaming around India trying to get people to practice loving kindness and peace and compassion every single day for 45 years. I mean, if that's not being an activist, I don't know what is, right? But the thing is, what he didn't do was cultivate anger and hatred towards those that were doing things that are viewed as horrific acts. So instead of hating the people that were doing these things, he showed them love and compassion and understanding and forgiveness. But he still tried to teach them how to be kind. He wasn't just saying, yeah, you can continue to harm people, that's okay. No. He said, this is how we should treat people. So don't hold it in. Speak up. Stay safe. And, holidays are a great time for this practice. So, all right, I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Gracie Hatch during her continued time of healing. All right, a few announcements. Do you want to do it? You want me to do it? Okay. A few announcements for you on out from our Dharma Bum host, Meredith. Thanks, Meredith.
Sure. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Meredith. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program meets every Thursday at 4:30. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you're done with it. If you'd please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out, that would be great. And if a few people could stay close and latch the windows, that would also be helpful. Thank you for being here. We